Mr. Gideon, who is going to lead us through the opening remarks and everything, and then bring in our presenter for today. So I plead with us to actually get our pens and our papers, and so we can jot down as many things as possible that will help us in understanding the sector. Thank you very much. Mr. Gideon, sir.
This is our second presentation since this program started. This program is called and organized by IMSL for benefit of some of our joining us for the first time. IMSL is an initiative advancement in mining, earth sciences, and environmental protection. IMSL is a charitable and non-governmental organization. As we all know, we are not being paid for this. We are doing this actually to encourage mining sectors in our country. In terms of development of economy, two things are very paramount: the agricultural sector and the mining sector. Our presenter is Mitchell Onyinye, who is a BXc holder in geology and has done a master's degree in economic and mineral management.
The management of ASM zones in Nigeria. A contribution to the formalization of ASM sector by. My name is Mitchell Mwafo. ASM, that's artisanal and small scale miners, are integral part of mining in every country that has a solid mineral sector in the world. In Nigeria here, we have a lot of artisanal small-scale mining sites, over 170 artisanal small-scale mining sites, which employs over 1 million people, both directly and indirectly. Artisanal small-scale miners, we know, they don't is environmentally friendly. They usually have little or no knowledge, technical knowledge of the mining sector, and they hardly have the equipment to mine in a way that it would be beneficial to the environment. So rather than making them looking at them as a problem to the country, both here in Nigeria and in other African countries where mining is being done, the government needs to find a way of integrating these people who are essential in the mining sector, integrating them into the mainstream mining, and reducing the effects they have on the environment and the health sector of the country. So one of the ways of doing this is formalizing them and registering them. Formalizing them is giving them an identity in such a way that the government will be able to identify who they are, and they'll be able to have access to credit facilities that will enable them mine in a profitable way. Small-scale mining is predominant in Nigeria due to the kind of poverty rate we have in the country. Most of these people go into this to earn a living. They go into mining to earn a living for their family, to be able to meet their basic needs. And due to the fact that these artisanal small-scale miners don't have the technical knowledge to mine, they don't have even the data, they don't have any form of knowledge of the geology of the areas where they mine. They mine in any way. They can just open up the ground at any point. And this causes a lot of destruction to the land, to forests, to the land, and contamination of water bodies. So here is a typical example of what artisanal and small-scale miners do to the environment. If we look at this environment, we see how this pit has been opened up. And from here, this becomes a big erosion site, which makes this place totally out of place for, you cannot use this place for anything at all. So the government really needs to look for a way to teach these people how to mine well. Look at this other pit here. We look at this pit here. You see the water that is accumulated in this environment. It's already contaminated. From the color, this water is not good for human consumption, even for animals. This flow structure here shows us the process which could be done in the form of registering and formalizing the artisanal miners. We start with identifying the sites where we have large number of artisanal small-scale miners. And then these sites will now be given numbers and codes according to the local government and the state where they are found. And even down to the specific minerals found in that environment. So let's say in the northern part where we have a lot of gold and we have some areas that have tantalite, we know we have a code that will go with gold specific for gold areas. Then this artisanal small scale miners should be registered and given tags. They're given their identity cards. And at that point, they can now be formed into cooperatives. So now we'll be discussing how do we go about creating these artisanal and small scale mining zones. So we have to find out, first of all, we identify the designation phase, we identify the specific areas which should be used as artisanal and small scale mining zones. Then the second one will be implementation phase, and the third will be management phase. So under the designation phase, we have the identification and delineation of ASM zones, the estimation of resources and economics of ASM zones, the environmental, social, health, and safety management plans. Under the implementation phase, we have the licensing and permitting, elaboration of the mine, environmental, social, occupational health and safety, and the closure plans. Then under the management phase, we have the supervision of ASM and support to ASM. The IMSF has already done some of this work in Edo State, in Oshun, and also Kebbi. Sometime last year, we were able to go and identify some artisanal mining sites, and we started the process of getting their data. So the government has to, try to cover up more areas and, encourage more people, because the government doesn't have enough hands to do this. This is where other private sectors, other non-governmental organizations can come into play with the support of the government to get all the data needed about artisanal small-scale miners. Then the next phase will be the estimation of resources and economics of ASM. We have to know the kind of grade and the quantity of a particular mineral in an environment. That's why before a place is chosen as an ASM zone, you must determine the mineral deposit, the reserve, the quantity must be something that will be mined for a long period of time, and they will be able to generate enough revenue. So because mining is capital intensive, and the government cannot just keep carrying the whole thing. Money and profit must be able to come in. Because one of the ways that one of the things that make miners not to get to the very end of mining is that due diligence is not done. The data needed is not really done to know, because when you want to go into mining, you must have a plan right from the beginning. You know the amount of money you need to spend down to the closure. When you don't have a plan, that is why we have so many, when most miners don't have the plan, and that's why we have so many cases of open mine pits, creating a lot of hazards in the environment. The next thing will be the economic estimations. We have to know the profit that is mine. As the profit is, knowing the profit, we have to set aside some specific amount for the closure of the mine, the rehabilitation and the closure of the mine. Then field exploration activities must be done. Yes, we must go into the field first of all. We understand the mineralization. Most of these artisanal miners, they mine because they don't have data. They just follow the trend. If they see a vein, they just follow the vein. When the vein stops, and that's where they end, or wherever they feel that their life is at risk, they stop. Occupational health and safety. This is concerning the workers. The artisanal miners, most of them don't mine in any form of personal protective equipment. So these are things that have to be put in place. You have to teach them how to use boots. When you look at them, most of them, they don't even wear, some don't even wear any form of footwear. So we need to encourage them for their own protection. They wear helmets, especially those that are going underground. They have to wear helmets to protect their head. And then environmental and OHS plan. So by the time we know the hazards for each specific mineral, this should be formed into a booklet for that covers every artisanal and small scale mining. It's for every specific mineral mined in the country, in Nigeria. We have the one for lead, for gold, for tantalite. That way, we need to even take into place the water bodies, the state of the water bodies before the mining, the air quality, the soil. All these things have to, the environment, the biology of the environment, everything has to be put into place prior to the mining, so that at the end of the mine life, when we want to rehabilitate and close the mine, things must be done in a way that is almost close to how it was previously. So the next point we'll be talking about, okay, here we'll be showing, here is a diagram showing the mineral resources map. From here, we can see the various minerals that are mined in Nigeria. Then the next phase will be the implementation phase. Okay, when we have discovered, identified, okay, these are the things we need and for an artisanal small-scale mining. So the next point here will be environmental, social, occupational health standard, safety, and closure plans. So we need a mine plan in the course of creating any area into artisanal small-scale mining zone. A mine plan is very important. And under this mine plan is where we have so many things. We're going to show all the steps, how the kind of mining pattern that will be, method that will be used. Will it be an open pit mining method or an underground mine? So you know that for an open pit, the hazards are different from underground. So these are factors that must be put in place prior to choosing an area as an ASM zone. Then the closure plan is the most important in all the planning, because one thing to mine is another thing to ensure that the environment returns almost to the way it was. So this is one thing that the government must put into place, because we've been having so many issues concerning closure of mine pits by the artisanal miners. So if we encourage them, telling them, okay, this is why we want to have these ASM zones, that you don't close up your mines. So we want to be able to teach you and lead you through the path. So at the end of the mining, we'll be able to close up these pits to avoid any kind of incidences in the future. So the next stage will be the management phase, the supervision of the ASM zones and the support of the ASM zones. This part is usually the supervision is done by the Artisanal and Small Scale Mining Department of the Ministry of Mines and Steel. They're the ones that are meant to they give out extension services to the artisanal and small scale miners in the field. But we must know that the manpower, the human resources for this is limited. So the government has to up their game, involving other organizations like IMSF is one of the things that we are after. We really want to teach these miners the way to mine in the right way. So the government has to look into involving support to make sure that the artisanal small scale are taught what to do in the to mine in the right way. And one of the things that ways of supporting these artisanal small scale miners, giving support in the ASM zones, is you have to dialogue with the local community. Most of the time, there are so many clashes that come up between the community and the artisanal and small scale miners. So these extension workers, we act as a gap. They are going to be in the middlemen between the artisanal miners and the host community. Oh, and then trainings must be done continuously. When you give someone something to do, you have to keep training the person. There are so many new technologies coming up in the mining the right way. So we have to keep updating the artisanal miners, teaching them the way to mine right. Then data, assistance in mine-based and regional exploration. Data is very important. Before the mining, we already talked of exploring. We need to provide them with the data. They know the pattern of the mineralization in any area. These artisanal miners are told how these things are called the mineral way to mine, the mine closure, the provision of the communal sanitary health and education. So what are the benefits of ASM zoning? The reduction of poverty. When we zone the areas, the way I spoke, we just spoke now, I talked about it just previously. When these areas are zoned, it's easier to control so many things. The facilities needed to make the mining more profitable will be provided so that the government will be able to make some revenue, and the miners will be able to earn better than they used to earn. And then other factors is that it will reduce environmental and health impact on the environment. It will even protect the host community. When the government is involved fully, when everyone knows, okay, this area is now an ASM zone, the host community knows this, everyone involved, all the stakeholders know this is it. It protects them. The artisanal miners cannot just misbehave. They can't act anyhow because the government in Ghana and Tanzania have made some progress. We also have a Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia and Mozambique. They've tried artisanal and small scale mining in some areas, and they've had some kind of success rates. And we see that Ghana and Tanzania, the government has provided a database. It provided some kind of data for the artisanal miners, making their mining easier. So here are some success rates in other countries. Ghana has been able to cover over 150 areas, and they've been designated for ASM. Encourage the Nigerian government to look at these success rates from other countries, and we see how we can start with just one pilot state. We have a state that we can use as an ASM zone to see how successful it could be. Subsequently, we can move to other states. Then the next point here will be talking of the challenges. As we talk of successes, we have some challenges of artisanal and small-scale mining zones. We have one of the challenges, the involvement of high-profile people. So this ASM zone, it will not be an easy one to start up, but it's going to be profitable in the long run. So the government has to have the political will. All the stakeholders involved must be prepared to not cut corners, to make things to go in the right way for these zones to work out, to be successful. Then another problem is this lack of finance and technology by ASM. The government has to provide they provide credit facilities for the artisanal and small-scale mining zones. The facilities will be easily accessible by the cooperatives that have been formed. The artisanal miners that we have already been formed into cooperatives, it should be made easy for them to access after due diligence have been done, after all the processes have been checked, everything has been checked, all the information submitted have been checked. The government needs to see how facilities, credit facilities be provided for the artisanal and small-scale miners. Looking at this piece here, we can see what artisanal and small-scale miners do to the environment. When we look at this first slide here, we can see these young men here panning some sediments they got, panning them to see if they can get gold in their sediments. And we see what they've done to this water body here. And look at the environment, the land in this environment. We see how devastated it has been. Looking at the next slide here, the first thing we'll notice here is that these guys are not properly dressed. Look at, they're not even putting on shirts. So these are the things we need to work on. They have to wear their personal protective equipment, like this young man here. He's putting on his boots and he's well dressed, just that he's not putting on his helmet. So in conclusion, the government needs to look into using creating these artisanal and small-scale mining zones. And the various factors needed is one thing that the government needs to work on. We can, as we said previously, we can start with just one pilot state and we see the success and improve. Looking at other countries that have done this, we improve more on how to incorporate artisanal and small-scale miners into the mining sector of Nigeria. And the resources, all the resources needed to make these areas, these zones successful should be provided by government, the financial and human resources. In terms of the human resources, we have the artisanal and small-scale mining department. These are the people that are meant to extend essential services to the artisanal miners to monitor them, but they are not enough. The human resources are not enough. So the government needs to involve other organizations. I told you an IMSF is a charitable and non-governmental organization that is in the sector. We have been interested in making mining beneficial both for the people and for the environment. Mining in a profitable and environmentally healthy way is what IMSF.
Now, his question is actually very pertinent. That's why we are here. We are trying to create this awareness on the importance of ASM in the country. That's why we are bringing up a strategy. This strategy is just a kind of, please, Mitchell, can you go to your chart flow, the slide where you showed us a flow. There's a flow you showed us on identification of miners, coding them and formalizing them. Now, what is the strategy we are trying to build in here? is a simple strategy. It's a strategy of identification, a strategy of zoning, and a strategy of implementation. You know, now, if we don't really understand these people that are actually involved in ASM, how can we legalize them? And how can they be actually be helped? Now, help cannot come for someone who is not legally bound or who doesn't have a legal backup. So that's actually why we are saying that, first of all, that there should be a kind of a restructuring process. You understand? Now, what Mitchell is presenting here is more of a zoning. Let's understand that this zone is actually attributed to ASM, and they are what we call LSM. That is the one that actually the medium scale miners. The medium scale miners or large scale miners can be zoned in a different location. Now, if the Ministry of Mines understands this zoning and some area could be carved out. Now, let me tell you one of the most important problems being faced by ASM, especially like what you are saying. Issue of data acquisition, issue of exploration, you know, the financing in the basic startup of ASM is very, very difficult. No bank today will give you any cover to explore. No bank will give you any money to mine. You understand? It's even easier to get money to mine than get money for exploration. But if these zones are being carved out in such a way that government can understand that these zones is just for ASM, then limited exploration can be carried out within these zones. And these zones now can be shared among the cooperatives. And now when there's a need, incentives and monitoring, you know, like some of these NGOs that are into mining can be set into the field to monitor and give extension services to some of the ASM. Now, but rather what we see is that government wants to collect the levy at the end of the day, but there is no incentive or a kind of a process to ensure that ASM is well organized. Now, even when this has actually been put in place for years, is it working? The policies that are in place, are they really working? Because you ask yourself, if the policies are working, why are we having a lot of minerals mined by ASM being carted away through our borders? Like nobody gives account of gold now that is being mined in this country. Most people will tell you that we don't have gold, but all our borders are porous. Nobody knows who is ASM, who is a large-scale miner, or who is even a medium-scale miner. Everywhere is just mining activities, and these things are done in a haphazard way, and environment are actually being deterred. So that is why we are bringing this awareness to see if there's a way of these areas could be zoned and limited activities of exploration are conducted within this place. And when this is done, their incentives can actually come in. So you can see, if you look at this chart, you look at, first of all, when ASM site is identified, location coding could be done and registration could be done. Now, if you look at this, we have one miner system registration. This means identifying miners from to their roots. You know, when miners are identified to their roots, you can actually render help to that. Now, the policy of cooperative is in place. You know, SSML can be given to cooperative. That is the first step to start with. But this cooperative do not have enough backup in order to succeed in terms of data. Why do they actually mine haphazardly? It's because they are looking for where the mineralization is. They are looking for the ore, and they don't have what it takes to actually identify some of these things. So that's why they mine here. In the next 1 month, they are very, very mobile. The mobility of ASM is so much that you cannot hold anybody responsible for any kind of operation in a particular environment. So that's why when they litter this place, they leave it and they leave it out open. And at the end of the day, nobody is held responsible. But these things actually need to be zoned and be given to, you know, to cooperatives. And some people will monitor it and be held responsible. And from there, incentives can actually come into place.